Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, 𝐍𝐤𝐤𝐢, and today I'm bringing back my dear friend, Nikki Cornfield. Last week we tried to do this live, but my electricity just got cut off like 10 minutes in. But we're doing it again. Hi, Nikki. Welcome back.
Hi, great to be here. Nice to see everybody. Even though I
Yeah.
can't see them, but I can imagine who's listening.
Yeah. So, Nikki, do you mind just sharing a bit about, who you are to our audience so they know a bit more about you?
Okay, well, I'm British, as you can tell by my accent, but I'm living in Perth, Australia. I've lived around the world with my husband's job. It's taken us from country to country, and so I've had quite a rich and diverse life so far. I'm a writer and an author, also developing psychic gifts. They seem to be unfolding quite rapidly. So as the energy in the world is changing, so are we. I've got quite a toolkit of various holistic health modalities. So they all blend into me. So everything comes to the table when I work with people. So that's a little bit in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. I love it. So Nikki, I think this was when like it started cutting off last time, but I was asking you what your definition of the awakened feminine was in this current chapter of your life. So please go ahead and share that with us.
It definitely for me feels like living with all the lights switched on. So coming at life just in a way of just real awareness, and not being judgmental of either myself or anyone else. And it's a much lighter way of being. So it's like not getting so triggered, but still recognizing the triggers. So it's very much just having this gentle awareness and just seeing that it's all part of life, and it's just this step-by-step process that we just move through, this journey, as everyone's using that word, but it is a journey, not a destination. I think more and more I'm realizing that okay, be a little bit more lighthearted about everything and just have fun along the way rather than taking it so seriously. So definitely I have an image of all the light switches on all the time, if you can.
Mm. I love that. Living with the light, all the lights switched on. That's such a beautiful way to put it. Yeah. I was just like, oh, that is so true. Yeah, even for me, like, I resonate so much with your definition, being able to kind of like, it feels like it's like, oh, as I'm going along, I'm just like switching each of the lights on more and more. I don't think all mine are switched on yet, but I'm getting there.
But that's okay. I think again, it's not being too hard on ourselves. I think we all especially I think with the spiritual awakening that everybody's talking about. It's too easy to get into the heaviness of that as well, and go, why am I not at this point, or why is this, and this comparison that goes on. But we're all here together, and the whole point is let's help each other. And it doesn't matter where you think you're at or where anyone else is at. It's not important. It's just being present with all of it. And it does make it easier. I always have that analogy of the light switch. Is like if you go too heavy into something, just turn another one on and just get a bit more real, get a bit more perspective on. We are here to have fun at the end of the day. I think we forget that quite often.
Yeah.
We get caught in the form too much.
Yeah, I know. Have you ever had a time where you were comparing yourself on your, spiritual awakening journey?
I think I'll come at it in a different way. I think the comparisons come when we get caught in the ego rather than the comparisons to where I felt like I've been. That's never come into the equation. It's always been this comparison to materialistic comparisons, I have to say, or where someone else is in their business, or how much money they're making. And as soon as I came away from that and realized that that is not important, it's showing up who I am. Then it became I became more gentle on myself. So yeah, I'd never compared spiritually. So I don't think you always have that awareness as you go along that you are on a spiritual path. I think that came from me with writing the book, but other people now are suddenly being almost like thrust into the limelight of it, or they are waking up because they think they should do, or they're kind of like throwing themselves in too quickly, when it should be a natural process, step by step, and really sitting in that organic process of, you are where you are, and your perception is always going to be different than someone else. Because what is reality? The reality, there isn't a reality. It's everyone's perception of their reality that creates that. And it's like, who are we to say what that is? It's a whole point, is that we're actually learning that as we go through our own lives, like coming to that realization that there is no such thing as anything. It's just what we see and what we create. So yeah, it becomes a little bit more fun if you look at it like that, rather than I must be there, or I must do that. And everyone's going crazy now, aren't they, with this, I must be at this point. And they, I think everyone's rushing to tarot readers and psychics, and I think, whoa, stop. You're moving away from yourself too much and putting your own power into someone else, like to predict what's going to happen. There's no such thing as predictions. We are in control of our own destiny always. So it's good to not lose sight of that. So a bit of a long explanation there, but that all came out from somewhere, as it usually does.
I love it. And, it's always better to give more depth in an answer than just, just going, oh, yeah, no, I don't, or yes, I do, because, it gives us, more understanding and knowledge as well, because I'm learning from you as you're speaking, and so is, whoever's listening right now, and, whoever will be listening on the replay when it hits, Apple and Spotify and YouTube. So, yeah. So, Nikki, when you filled in the questionnaire, the title you chose for, if you could name your title, the question is, if you could name the title of your episode, what would it be? And yours is The Soul's Compass, what it is, how do you find it, and why is it important? And I know that you recently published a book called The Soul's Compass. I got it here, ready. I have to say I still haven't read it yet, so I'm very sorry. But I do have it in my hot little hands.
Yeah.
And so sometimes for me, I always find it's probably better that I don't read, because then I can actually ask, questions. But, either way, I think both ways are good. If you read it, then you have more questions around certain topics. So where am I getting to? Where I'm getting to is, why did you choose this topic to talk about, and why is it important to talk about?
Because for me, the writing of the book was never a decision I made from any other point, from a feeling inside, which was when I knew that there was this soul, connection that was happening. And I felt something very deep inside that needed to be birthed, and I didn't know what it was. It wasn't like I made a conscious decision to write a book, which I know a lot of people write a book for a business, or write a book because they feel they ought to write something. But for me, it was, what is it that's trying to come out from the inside? And having always followed a life of following this knowing, which didn't have any logic, it didn't often have any sense to it, but I was so driven by this inner guidance that I felt, this knowing when something was right, a direction to go in, and learning to trust it more and more. This was unfolded more in the book, where I realized that I was being guided to write this because my spirit team, my higher self, however, the combination of everything, wanted to show me the steps so that it would form a clear picture of the trust that I'd had, but also that I needed to share with other people, like, wow, we all have this. We all have this internal guidance system, that we need to listen to, but a lot of people don't trust it because they get swayed by the logic of it, or the rationality, or what someone, pulls them in a different direction and says, that's ridiculous. Why are you trusting that? And I wanted to show them that we do come with a plan. We come with a guidance team in terms of our spiritual team, that are all helping, keeping us in alignment with why we've come here, the decision of the soul path that we've chosen before we arrived, in this physical form. And that if we don't trust it, we're going off tangent all the time. And that obviously leads to, it's not a clear way. Things will come up that will try and get us back onto it. So if we try and trust it in the beginning, you don't have a smoother, you have a smoother life. You're not going to have an untroubled, passage through your journey, but you are definitely going to feel more in alignment, more energetic, more focused and positive, because you're always like coming back onto the path. So it's so important to trust it. So I just think of it like a needle inside there, and you can feel when you go in the wrong way because everything inside feels stuck, it jangles, it doesn't feel right. And as soon as you go, right, come back to the instincts, what do I really know here? And follow it. So you could go on and on about the book really, because it's been a bit of a journey writing that.
Can you share how, like, when you started writing your book, like, how long did this process take for you?
Oh, it was long. I was living in Malaysia at the time, and I remember running my hands along the books on a bookshelf and go, what is it? I can feel something that needs to come. What is it? But it was literally like putting things down, but then where is this going? I don't have a start, a beginning, or an end. And I played with it for a long time, just putting ideas down. And it wasn't until, I moved countries again and this sort of volcano erupted, this crisis of identity, that I started putting just the life stories down, just pieces down all the time. And then lots of serendipities happened, connections happened, and I ended up working with someone that I'd met on a trip to the Netherlands, where I'd started my whole expat journey, my first time living overseas. And she said, when you align with your story, the book will write itself. And what she meant was, when you align with your soul, the book will write itself. So the whole point of the book is to get you fully in alignment with your story, and we will do the rest of it. And she got me starting right at the beginning as a child. And so that was like opening all these dormant seeds in a garden, and suddenly this whole garden started erupting. And I went, oh my goodness, I'm not writing alone here, because I felt my dad at that time. I definitely felt I was working with someone from spirit who was like, you are not going to stop this writing until you've seen this whole picture. And that was how it was. It was a 4-year process. Even editing the book, I wasn't editing the original book. The whole thing was changing each time. It was exhausting, physically, mentally, everything. But I just couldn't stop. It was like this inner drive, constantly bigger than me in so many ways. And I think the book I found it must be coded or something, because people are reading it and reading it again. I'm going, oh, I don't understand this. Like, why would someone want to read that twice? What is in this book is energetic transformation for others. And I never saw that coming when I started it. So that's why now I trust this guidance more than I've ever done. And I'm quite passionate about that, as you can hear.
Yeah. When you were talking, the phrase "it's a living book" just came to my mind. So it's living, and it's
Totally. Absolutely.
it's activating people as they're reading it. Yeah.
So when you
So
say you haven't read it, I have no attachment to that, because
yeah.
because the whole, it being in your home next to you, that I've got friends who've not even read it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Other people who've read it 3 times, and I'm taking a notebook with it. But it doesn't matter, because I really feel that there's something about it that is shifting something that I can't even describe that, but I trust it. And it's just, again, it's okay if you haven't read it. It's okay. All of it's okay. It is what it is. It's a much more peaceful, gentle energy to live from. But wow, it's taken time. The book has really helped with that. So
I love that. And because I've had 4 books, and at the beginning of my journey I'm like, oh, why won't my friends read my book or buy my book? Because you kind of have all that attachment. And by now, like, I've done my 4th book, they're all multi-author books, and it's like, oh yeah, whoever decides to buy it will buy it. And I've got friends who have bought my book, but I know they haven't read it, because they showed me they bought it, but they never said anything. Or maybe they read it and then they don't know what to say to me. I don't know what the story is, but it is letting go of that attachment. And obviously, for me to say yes to buying a book, because I'm quite selective with what I buy, it means that I'm drawn to it, but it's not time for me to read it yet. So I always put it that way, because there's books that I've bought and they're just sitting on my shelf, or they've sat on my shelf and I'm like, oh, I think it's time to read it. And then I'll just read it. So it's very interesting when you just kind of just allow yourself to just follow the nudges, which brings me to asking you, okay, soul's compass. How does one find it?
I would say that they don't find it. People have to trust that it's there. When you think about your instincts, like most people know really what they want out of life or where they want to go. They will get easily swayed one way or direction, but if they sat in their own energy and just went, what do I really want? What is my soul telling me? There's the soul compass in itself, because it's just like trusting that feeling. And I think people don't want to trust it because they are used to having the opinion of other people. Like, we grow up with that in the schools. Like, other people tell us what to do. We're not allowed to have this full creative expansion that I think that we should be able to. But anyway, we won't go down that track. But it's trusting into it step by step. So even if you think, okay, I know who that person is that's calling now, write it down. Write down these little ideas that you have, and then go back and go, oh, did that actually come? How true was that? And you learn to trust step by step that, okay, that is my soul's compass, because I was right on that hunch, or I knew who was going to call me at that point. And it's the more that you trust into it and start to acknowledge that those things have actually been right, that you more and more go, okay, now I'm going to trust this feeling. And that's the soul compass. And it becomes more like I would say, if it's rusty and it's not really working very well, then you start to shine it up and it starts to get, really vibrant. It gets an energy of its own because it's being listened to. And then, your spirit guides will also go, oh, she's actually listening. I'm going to help her a little bit more. I'm going to show more synchronicities, more signs, so that she'll start to recognize them. And then you start opening it up. That's how I would best explain it.
I love that. And just as you were talking, I'm just thinking about me and my journey of trusting, and I can say I still don't 100% fully trust. Your mind gets in the way, but gosh, if you told me 5 years ago what I'll be doing now, I'll be like, what? No way. But I've just been, if you know my journey, I've just been following the nudges like you have, Nikki, just constantly just going, okay, right, we're going down this way. And then you go down this road. So actually, this has now popped into my head. You trust the nudges and you're going, okay, I've asked myself, I know where I want to go, but my nudges are taking me down like a completely seemingly unrelated path. Do you trust that nudge to go down that seemingly unrelated path, or is that your ego? Like, how do you differentiate between, what really is your soul telling you, okay, this is the way you're going, or whether, your ego or whatever other people's opinions have come into play to nudge you otherwise?
I'll come back to the point that you always have a free will. So you've come into this physical form with a certain purpose and lessons to learn, and different people will be coming onto that path to take you a direction, to help you this way. That just will happen naturally, but you're always going to be able to go off on a tangent because you have free will. So those things will keep on happening. It's like you can't just stay on the freeway, put your foot on the accelerator and keep on going and ignore all the signs, ignore all the possibilities, because they're always going to keep coming. So you will keep going off down side roads and you will keep going off in different directions. But so then you can be completely off track, but still experiencing something and learning something. But eventually you'll be on that track going down that bumpy road and go, just doesn't feel right. And then you kind of have a guidance that will bring you back to the freeway, if that's the right way of describing it. I always think of it like that. You're going along, you're foot on the accelerator, the lights are on, you know where you're going, you go into the destination what it says on the sign, but then you go, oh, but it looks nice down this way, I'll just take a detour. You're still going to learn something, but inside it's going to keep bringing you back if you listen. But you've still got free will. You can keep on going down that path, that rocky path, and you never get back on the freeway. And then you're then choosing not to follow the soul's compass. You are going off on track. That's how I would describe, because free will, I mean, we have got free will. We don't have to do what we're here to do. We don't have to follow the soul's compass. And you just end up with a different life experience. But I don't feel it will be as fulfilling, and it won't feel quite right inside. And I think at some point you'll get a realization of that, and then you're going to regret different decisions, but they're still decisions you've made from a conscious place where you've chosen to go off down that path. Does that explain it in a way that's clear? Free will come into it, and the spirit team no one will ever force us to do anything from a spirit side, because they recognize that the spirit in a human form will still have free will. So they can only try to send nudges and messengers along and guidance to help us, but they still will go, well, you've got free will. You're in this human form. You can still make a different choice.
Mm.
So it's interesting when you start looking at it like that.
Yeah. Okay. So before you were saying when we start listening to our soul's compass, your team is like, okay, oh my gosh, she's listening. Yay, let's give her more things to, trust more. So when we talk about the free will and we're like, I'm not trusting my soul's compass, I'm not even listening to it, I'm just doing whatever I want. Does your team then also reduce your nudges and serendipitous experiences, or is it more that they are nudging you but you're just so oblivious that you don't see it?
Yeah, I think the latter. You're not. They're always going to. They're always with us, and they're always going to love us, and they are, wanting us to enjoy life. At the end of the day, they know there's certain lessons and different things, experiences that you've chosen to do. That's my belief. But so they're always going to try and encourage you that you have those experiences, and they're not always bright and lovely, so you've chosen to experience, and they want to make sure you stay on that path. But if you're not listening and you're not in communication, like they want to there has to be a communication as well, like asking for help, asking for guidance, and just being in a quiet space and listening, so that they can get through. Like when you're sleeping, they're more likely to be able to get some communication through, but you have to be in a quiet space to listen. If you're completely in this chaos and noise all the time, then they can't get anything through. And so you're more likely to go off on a tangent and not do the things that you've chosen in this lifetime to experience. And then, my belief is that you'll come back and you'll end up having to do them again. So why not get it right this time and have the best experience that you possibly can? So you have to be quiet to listen and to trust that not necessarily going to come as a voice. It might just be like a sign or a message or a noise or an animal or somebody comes into your path. But it's recognizing, oh, okay, that feels good to go that way. That person, I'm enjoying being with that person, and you're going to be learning something. It just feels different. But being quiet, you have to have a quiet time. It's a bit like being in a busy airport. You can't hear anything, but if you lock yourself in a toilet, you can just stand there for a bit and go, okay, all right, come back to myself. Like, what am I feeling now? You have to just. I do that frequently, so that's me in an airport. I get quite overwhelmed, so it's like, okay, where can I go that's quiet? Just need to come back to myself. What's going on here?
I know airport is a different type of energy for sure. It's just like I'm a bit like that too at airports, but I think I'm still okay with lots of people around, but I do get a bit frazzled when I'm at the airport. So I totally get what you mean. Um, yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for that answer.
yeah.
That was really good. Um, so then this question came in. For those who do believe that, we come back multiple times, um, why like why would we choose to do yeah, okay, actually let me rephrase that. When For those that believe this, and we have a plan before we come back to what we want to experience, that the plan, do we always experience good, like a good life, or do we sometimes go, no, I want to experience like a totally crappy life, that just to experience it? Or can we choose to always have a good life if we choose, if we end up listening to our soul compass? Does it always lead us to a good life?
I think my belief, it is inevitable. I mean, I respect that everybody's at a different point and everybody believes different things, but my truth is that we're coming down in soul groups, so we are choosing. I believe that families would reincarnate together, so that you are actually not coming down alone. So between you've chosen to experience. I mean, for example, your son might have been your brother in a previous life. So what do you both need to learn in this lifetime that was a different experience in the last time? And they're not. It's not always pretty, and it's not always. It's not always joyful, and I think that's the whole. Why does the soul need to expand? Why we don't? I don't actually know that. I can't give you that answer. I wish I did, but the soul seems to want to continually grow and expand, and the only way it can do that is to have experienced different emotions in different situations. And I know in my lifetime how I feel in the last 5 years, that soul expansion, because I've gone through a very dark time. I've gone through a lot of emotional turmoil. I've gone through all sorts of stuff. I don't feel I could have had that if I'd have just stayed where I was. So I see the learnings in everything now. And I think the soul, when it's coming back down in a physical body, is just like wants to expand. So it's chosen to experience different things. And it kind of helps then to deal with the adversities and challenges that come along if you can see it from a wider perspective. The bigger, we've heard this phrase, the bigger picture. That seems that for me now, these old wives' tales, these stories, these phrases that you hear, I think carry a lot of truth. And always look at the bigger picture. I went, oh yeah, because it is looking at the bigger picture, not just our perspective as one person. It's like, okay, all souls are connected, everyone's connected, so we are all here to experience everything, and each soul's chosen a different what it needs to learn. So sometimes, yeah, it's not nice. It's heavy, big, tragic experiences that, and you think, why would you choose that? I don't know, but I feel that we do.
Mm.
So again, it all comes down to perspective. How do we approach these things that happen to us? Do we go into the victim stage, or do we try and work through the deep, heavy emotions and come out the other side with the learnings of it and the
Mm.
ability to change our own lives and someone else's along the way? Because we've seen how that happens quite regularly. People go through tragic situations, and they end up doing something truly magical that comes from this deep depth of emotion that they would never have done had that not happened. And I'm witnessing that more and more. People totally changing their lives after an injury or something. And I've just gone, they'd never have done that had that not happened. So perhaps there is, truth in that they've chosen that on a soul level. So I'll leave it there because it's a big subject and I could go
Mm.
on all day. And I'm still, learning myself, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, we're always learning, but I think it's great, when you learn and you can share your perspectives, then, it helps other people to turn their light switches on their journey. So, um, you know, yeah, I think we all have different perspectives, but there's always some connecting point where we're like, oh, okay, I get it. I get your view and I can see it, and then we can also then accept others' views with kindness. And yeah, I think that's really
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because this kind of dropped in when you were talking. You mentioned that when we might choose to experience something tragic, and we do something and we turn our life around and it's magical. um can you share like maybe one or two of those experiences that you might have had in your life where you have gone through some really hard times, but now, like, a changed perspective has taken you out of that, and you've become more resilient and strong through it?
Definitely. I mean, the first one that springs to mind is when we moved to back to Australia. Gosh, it's 8 years ago now, from Asia, and I certainly hit I would call the dark night of the soul. Sounds quite heavy, but it did feel like that at the time. It felt like I could barely get my head off the pillow. I was depressed, and we'd just moved country. We'd moved in the middle of from a tropical place to the middle of winter, so light to dark, hot to cold, and it was like this eruption. And I'm responsible for 3 children. My husband's started a new job, and I'm in this strange house, strange country yet again. But it seemed like I went right to as low as I've ever felt. And there is only one way out of that, is that you have to work your way through it. And I realized that, that's the point where you have to dig deep within and go, well, I have to move myself through these feelings that are coming up. Why are they coming up? They were a combination of everything I felt I had lost, like, my identity, my family, everything. You wipe out a life, you start another one. But the point is that all these things came up, and you go, there's only one way through it. You just you have to feel them, you have to realize where they're coming from, and you have to move forward. And that's where the seeds of the book really, really started, because I realized, okay, I have to write my whole life out almost to realize that, where's the grief coming from? Why do I feel like I've lost everything? The perspective has to change, but first I have to work through it. And I always describe it as like a volcano. Like, everything has to keep coming up and out until there's nothing else to come out. And that's the process I went through, and to the point that I actually moved my whole family back to Perth, and following a knowing with no logical sense at all, because I recognized that if I didn't, I couldn't help myself or my daughter. So it's a long story. It's all in the book, but it's the fact that, it's, again, trusting that, when you hit a moment in your life like that it's there for you for a reason, to look at it in all its whatever, and it's going to show you something about it's just going to show something bigger than you realize, and don't run away from it. Does that answer that question? Because I could go on a bit of a tangent on that as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love
But
it
I
when
would
my
say
guests
that
go on
that was
tangents, so it's fine. If you want to go on a tangent and keep going, that is perfectly fine.
it was interesting, because it was like I had all these crazy weather moments as well, where the whole house got flooded, and the garage, everything that we'd moved around with, and we were always shedding off things as we moved houses and moved country, but like the shed got flooded twice, like mud, water, everything. And I just thought, well, what's the significance of that? Because is this, this was trying to obviously get me to clear things, because everything was flooded, like old books, everything was like covered in mud and water. And twice this happened. It's definitely telling me something here. This is a time where you need to purge everything, and you need to look at your whole life, and you need to find who you are through this. And that's really where, that was a dark period, but it went, I look at that now and go, well, that was the beginning of this. And I would really say that the awakening that I had was a very gradual process, but very interesting how it all ended up and where I am now in comparison. But couldn't have escaped it. I couldn't have avoided it. And I think often people get these situations where in life where they have to move through it, and it will, and change happens at the end of it, and they come for a reason. I think that's part of the soul's journey as well, that okay, you're not listening, let's just throw everything at you, and we'll just like light a volcano at the same time, and you better start listening. And so I think that was probably a catalyst that of something that should have happened earlier, but I was then like forced to face it.
Mm.
And we either crumple or we stand up taller, and we just become someone completely different, or more like who we really are. You know, the truth of who we are becomes more clear. So hopefully you can avoid the volcano, and hopefully you can avoid the avalanche. You know what I mean? You really want to avoid those if you can.
Yes, definitely. Um, actually, did you like looking back now? Did do you recognize the signs that were there before this volcano that came up for you with the flooding and the move and all those things?
Yes, definitely. I think when I was in Malaysia, my husband was working very long hours. He was commuting into Singapore, and I had this very beautiful life from the outside. You know, beautiful home, everything was good, but I was just like, something is missing. Like, who am I? Where did I go? You know, sort of following my husband's career, I completely lost who I was, and I think if I'd have carried on like that, I don't think any of my family would have had the transformation that they've had, but it was okay. It needed something very big for me to kickstart me into looking at everything, and that's where, you know, the move to Adelaide, which I couldn't have avoided at all. Yeah, it was just it was quite something actually. But I think the warning signs were there. That the sense of like something's deeply missing was
Mm.
followed me, I think, most of my life, actually. My husband always said, you know, what are you searching for? For goodness sake, will you go out and find it? And I would always say to him, I don't actually know what it is. I said, but I'll tell you when I found it. And what he must have known, like I believe that my husband and I have been at least 11 lifetimes or more together in different ways, because he always knew that I was searching for something. And I'm like, I just don't know, but I'll tell you when I find it. And then when the book was published, he said, have you actually found it now? And I went, yeah, it was me. That's what I said to him. So,
And then
you
what
know,
did he
his
say?
awareness of me, like, I'd just say, yeah. And he said, oh, you're happy now? And I said, well, I've always been happy. I said, but there was always this sense of searching for something. And that, but he never had that. He always seemed to have this sense of like he completely knew who he was, wasn't looking for anything. He doesn't meditate. He hasn't done any of this spiritual stuff. He just always had this calm sense of knowing who he was. And that's when I realized that, wow, like he's here to help me along my path this time, because he's always trusted these knowings. He's always allowed me to move. I mean, I moved the whole family from Adelaide to Perth. There was no logical, rational explanation for it. You know, we just renovated a house after 3 years. His job was there. The boys were in school. Elise was already in Perth. She was unhappy, so she'd gone to board. And he just said, and I just said, we need to move back to Perth. And he was like, but we've just renovated the house, like blood, sweat, and tears for 3 years. And I said yes. And he said, are you sure? And I said yes. Now, it made no sense if I'd have written it down on paper. None whatsoever. The house was beautiful. We just got it as we wanted. We'd unpacked everything. 3.5 years it got to that point. I'd gone through this, you know, crazy volcanic eruption, or so it's described by him. And he just said, are you sure? Now, no one who doesn't know someone else on a real soul level would have that trust in another person's decision. That's my belief, because you know, he's a really logical, rational, calm, wise man who just said, are you sure? And I
Mm.
just went, wow, that's amazing. Would I trust someone else if they just said, I'm sure?
Yeah.
But he did.
Oh,
So I think that's when I realized that I just have to trust the process. I know it gives me goosebumps, because I look back and I go, oh my God, like that was such a brave move to be so sure on the inside that it was the right thing to do. And it, you know, financially did not at all on any level. I just trusted. Oh yeah, it was crazy. It's a crazy time.
I just love it. It just shows like how much you just trust your soul compass. And I love that your husband trusts you so much, because one of the questions that popped in was like, what did your husband say? And he just went, are you sure? And then you guys just moved. Wow.
It was mad, but it was madness on every level when I look back, because we had a house here that we'd had rented for years. It needed a lot of work doing to it, and we'd renovated this beautiful house up in the hills, my ideal life, food grown locally, vineyards, scenery. I loved it, but yet still on the inside, I knew that we needed to do this move. And then COVID hit. So I go, okay, we would have been separated from our daughter for 2 years had I not made that decision. So the knowing must have been like it was a collective knowing as well. It was like, something big is going to come. We need to be with my daughter. We need to do this move. But I just kept going, no, it feels right. And it was like, I'm seeing this bigger picture. I can feel the bigger picture coming, what we're stepping into. And I would say it's only this year, after 5 years, that I said to my husband, we're in the bigger picture now. We're in what I felt when we were in Adelaide. And and he went, okay. I said, but it's not been easy the last 5 years have been difficult as I've knitted the family back together, all the things that it's hard to explain really, but it has felt like I've been knitting the family back together and myself in the last 5 years since we moved back here, but still deep down, yes, I made the right decision. So it's quite wild really when you think about it. It's not easy to trust it.
Yeah,
but
I love it.
wow,
I just
the
love
benefit
that story. Yes, I love that story so much. It just encompasses, your topic that you want to talk about. Wow. And I'm so glad you moved here, because otherwise I wouldn't have got to meet you in person. And Nikki and I, we like to go for walks, and catch up, and we have amazing conversations. So I'm really glad that you're here to, like you said before, like the people that just kind of come in your life as you grow and expand, in your journey is beautiful. So thank you for being in my life.
Oh, that's lovely. I feel the same. It's been beautiful how it has unfolded, but again, it's never all a fairy tale ending. I think people are aware, if they're aware, that following this compass is not the easy road. They would say it's not the conventional path. It's not the easy road. It's yes, it might be a smoother in some way, but is it? I don't know that it is actually. I just think it's more organic. You start to trust yourself more through it, and more and more and more, and that's why and you recognize those wonderful moments where you've met someone who you definitely feel that on a soul level. I've had that so much in the past, well actually probably at least a year, where I've gone, oh my goodness me, if anyone else says to me, I know you, if I had a pot with put $1 in every time, because it's literally, people keep saying to me, I know you, and I'm going, okay, well, there's obviously another soul connection, because I don't always feel the same, but they know me. I'm like, what's actually happening? Is that them feeling something authentic in me? Is that what they're connecting to? Or do they know me on a soul level? And I think it can be a combination of both, but that's fascinating to me. I'm going, okay, there you go then. But it is. It's very interesting. I had a client the other day. The first thing she said to me on Zoom was, I know you.
Whoa.
It's an interesting start. Because I knew straight away that the session was going to go great, because we already know each other. So, okay, let's just trust this. And I won't, wow, this is amazing.
Wow. That is so cool.
And the similarities in each other as the conversation unfolded, I was like, oh my goodness me, we really do know each other. It's like we were on parallels in our life. I'm like, okay, and she was a client. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. oh, I'll have more of this because this is great. This is an easy way to help people because it was
Mm.
so organic and so simple. And you feel the energy in my body as I was having the hour. And I went, wow, this is what's unfolding now because of the path, you know. And I think other people will know when they're in alignment because they'll feel that energy inside where it's like it's just expansive, and you get quite hot and you feel it feels right. So but yeah, it's a process. It takes time,
Mm.
years and years. Well, it has for me.
Yes, I think it does take years and years, and it just takes you experiencing and going through your life journey. And I think even for people that look like they're, awaken very quickly and learn all this stuff, they also have gone through a lot before they got to that point. It was like a preparation. So, um, I've had that sense where I'm like, oh, how come it was so quick for them? But you look at what they've had to experience, it kind of also makes sense that it was kind of like they're prepping and there was just this burst, and they, just it just had to
Yeah,
happen that way. Yeah.
yeah, but they'll still be on a path of learning. I mean, I don't think we ever, because we don't remember. Well, I know they say that some people are remembering past lives, but I think if we say that we don't remember, how are we to know what we should really feel like or what it's supposed to be like? That's the thing that curiosity I come from, and that we can come at life with, that just stay curious because we don't actually know what we're supposed to feel like or what it's going to be like because we haven't experienced it in a way that we remember. So I think that's the fun part of it. It's like having that almost like that childlike excitement. I find I'm a bit like that now. Like it's the childlike excitement. Like, oh my goodness me, really? Like, it's exciting rather than thinking, well, I've arrived and I'm awake and okay, I've got there. Well, it's like it's ridiculous. You got your whole life. You don't know what's going to be next or what it feels like.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's an untapped sort of like reservoir or whatever you want to how else would I describe it. We just don't know what our potential is, and I think that's why it makes it exciting. We don't know what we're capable of. So we have to just live in that way of, ooh, you know. But I think we've got a bit caught up in the heaviness of the outside world, and I think that's what I'd like to encourage people is to try and not get caught up in the external chaos of the thing and try and stay inside.
Mm.
And it really helps to stay tapped in, but it takes time to do that. You have to make a
Yeah.
conscious effort, I think, to do it, especially now. We're so bombarded by stimulation 24/7. It's hard to know who we are through all of it. So becoming more evident that we need to actually make a choice to tap in, tap
Mm.
out, tap in and tap out.
Yeah. I love that. It is. Yeah, we definitely are constantly stimulated. I don't hardly even turn on the TV, and actually I've reduced my kids' TV time as well, which has been actually really good for them. So it's that
Mm,
constant
yeah.
bombardment, whatever it is. As you were talking, I wanted to ask you, you talked about how, choosing the conscious path and listening to your soul compass is not the easiest path, and I can attest to that as well. But it does, you are so much more fulfilled and happier when you do go down. Obviously, there are things that are not great that can happen, but you learn and you build your resilience. Um, do you have any tips for people who, as you were saying, that we shouldn't get bombarded by the external and, just, stay center and true to ourselves? What if someone gets a nudge, they're listening to their soul compass and they're like, oh, okay, I need to do this, and they're in fear? Um, do you have any tips for someone that go, okay, I'm ready to listen, but oh my gosh, I just got this. This is too scary for me to go ahead. What can they do to start or like to keep going?
I think it's just it's as I said before. If you've got a little book and you just write down things that have dropped in or thoughts, and you act on little things, start gently, and then seeing the confirmation of what you've thought, or you know what I mean. Start really small, but writing it down, and then gradually just get more and more confident to trust it. I think if you go on the instincts with big decisions, there is fear in it because you're thinking about the consequences if that decision isn't a good one. So start very small, and I think that just it's like a muscle. It just develops, and you get more confident because you see the confirmations happening, and then that's really, I think, what I would say is just start very small and just writing things down, learning to trust yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is learning to trust yourself. Really is the key, and that takes time because most people want to have a validation from someone else. They want to put the decision or the responsibility in someone else's hands. It's easier to put it on someone else, but you have to learn confidence, and you have to take the consequences of the decisions and own it. I think that's where then you're not in a victim state. You're not blaming someone else. Like, okay, that didn't feel like a very good decision, but I'll learn from it, and I'll use that wisdom and experience from that decision to go forward. And I think it's always a gradual step by step, but you have to take ownership for the decision you make. And if it doesn't feel right, you just make a different one, and you just keep learning and keep growing the vessel, I would say.
Mm. I love the taking ownership part. That's something that I think people don't like to do, because it's much easier to blame it on someone else than to take ownership. I wanted to ask you, how can people start taking ownership? Or like being aware, because I think a lot of times it's just so automatic to blame. Like, how can we start building that, self responsibility and ownership?
You just have to make a decision to do it. I think there's no one else can do that for you. So it's again, if you're if you're awake and conscious of yourself, and your part is being connected to everything and everybody. So whatever you do has a knock-on effect, a ripple effect on everyone around you. It's making a conscious decision to take ownership and going, well, I'm not going to blame anyone else's decision. I am in full conscious awareness that I'm making it, and then you have to own it. I've definitely gone through that the hard way in various ways, but I learn from it. I've trusted myself more now because I've gone, okay, that wasn't a very good decision, and that certainly was not a good decision, but it was still my decision, and I've had to own the consequence of that. And I wasn't in that frame. I wasn't like that for a while. It was like I had to work my way out. I had to dig out of the hole, and go, I've got to climb out of this because I've made it. And I think that's part of life's experiences, that we will make mistakes. We will make decisions that are not probably the best ones. But as long as we take the learnings from it, we then take the next step forward.
Yeah.
But we have to take ownership. Radical self-responsibility, I call it.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, because yeah, that's something that I've learned as well. And when I look around, in my old workplace, gosh, if people just took self responsibility, work would be so much more enjoyable for everyone. But yeah, it is a hard thing to do
Absolutely.
because it's always easier to blame. Yeah. Nikki, I'm just looking at the time, and I just wanted to ask you one last question, or maybe two last questions before we wrap up. Um, the first one is, from our conversation today, what would you love our audience to really take home with them as a take-home message?
I'd like them to take home that they're never alone. I think it's easy to feel separation from others, from ourselves. Certainly, I know what it feels like when if you feel alone, you're generally disconnected from your soul, and I think I want people to realize that they are never alone. That there's always you know, their spirit team are always with them. There's always someone with them that's there, and you're not alone. And I think, you know, we're all here to help each other home at the end of the day, and to not think of them as being separate from everything. That even the crazy stuff happening in the world, we're still all part of it. We're still all contributed towards it. So it's, but just that feeling of like you're never alone, never alone. I think because there's too much separation, and people don't feel that they're really connected in. And you know, that's the thing, is just remember you're not on your own.
Thank you.
And what
That's
can you do
beautiful.
to reconnect to that space where you don't feel alone? And I think it's just remembering that we're all part of this one great big collective energy, and everybody's stuff is going through us, and our stuff is going through them, and it's like this continual energy. And you know, whatever you do, it has an effect on someone else. So I think that would stop anybody, hopefully, from, you know, if you stop and thought, oh, actually what I do is going to affect someone else. You know, it's just trying to get people to keep coming back inside and use their own resources rather than looking for it somewhere else. But again, it's not easy. It's a continual process, I think, of checking back in and, you know, pushing
Yeah.
away what doesn't really serve you, you know, being around energies that doesn't feel right inside, including people. Yeah, it's constant. It's a constant, like putting the little car back on the track, isn't it? Like, oh, the car's just toppling off the track. You know, remember those those big things that used to play on as kids? I'm probably older than you. The little cars on the tracks, and the cars that keep falling off the side.
Oh,
And you go,
yes.
we'll put the car back on again. I kind of had that image come there, where it's like, okay, let's put the car back on the track again, and then you, like, it goes around a really tricky corner, and it comes off again. I think life's just like that. We're all trying to keep on the tracks, and the car keeps falling off the side, and, you know.
Yeah. That's a really good imagery, actually, to, yeah, tie it all together. It makes so
Yeah,
much sense. Yeah.
just like there. So that's what happens.
Yeah.
Clairvoyant, all these pictures, images, and that was the perfect one. So there you go.
Yeah. That was a perfect one. It just made it like, oh, yeah. Thank you. That's such a
I
beautiful take
know.
home message. Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, Nikki,
My
if
pleasure.
people want to find out more about you, how, you know, they can work with you, where they can get your book, where are the places to go do all those things?
Okay, well, my website, which is, I don't know if you've got details of that, so it's just
Yeah, I'll pop it into the show
nikkicornfield.com.
notes. Yeah.
You know, Facebook Messenger, anyone can always reach out and private message me. And the book's on Amazon, and it's also on Bilbao Press. So, you know, go ahead and order it from there. So, but yeah, if you're drawn to read it, then I think that's enough to go and buy it. Or buy it for someone else. The amount of people who've bought a book and gone, I'm just buying one for my friend. Like, have you actually read the book? No, but I know I need to buy it for this friend. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I never saw that happening, but
Oh,
I feel like I'm being, you know, okay, whoever's working with me is helping me to reach more people, because I didn't do that. That just happened. And that's going back to that curiosity and that excitement. Like, that got me really excited. Like, how is that possible that several people are buying books for their friends and they've never even read the book? Okay, that's not me doing that. I just have to trust it.
yeah.
It's fabulous, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I've had that before where I like was driving to meet my friend and I got a message, oh, go get this book. And I'm like, okay. So I went and bought it for my friend. So it does happen for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and more will happen like that. And I think, especially now, the energy is definitely, we're in very exciting times. I think people would say, well, it's a terrible time, but I don't know. I look at it the opposite way. I think it's very exciting. But yeah, we'll go through a bit of a dark night of the storm for a while, without a doubt. You have to have that. So, but it's exciting. It is exciting times, you know. So
Yes.
I'll try and keep in that frame of mind if I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
which means don't read the news, don't read the papers, don't get involved in any of that stuff. I'll leave that to my husband. He's like, no, I need to read the paper. I'm like, that's great. You do that. I don't need to. So
Yes.
it's nice because instead of like going, oh my God, why are you reading the paper? Why are you doing that? Like you shouldn't be. I just go, that's fine. You do that, but I won't. And I'm like, I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. I'd have gone, you shouldn't be reading the paper. Da, da, da. And now I don't. I just go, okay, you need to do that, but I don't. And I just don't get caught in the I don't get caught in that, attack mode, I would say, I would describe it.
Yeah.
So, but that's taken a bit of time and experience.
Yes. Yeah, because whether you watch mainstream or not mainstream, it still attacks on either side. So I think I tend not to watch the news,
Yeah.
and I get my news from osmosis. So
Yes.
I think we talked
Yeah,
about that
that's happened.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that, but you've told me now. So,
Yeah. And then if it interests me, then I'll go and have a look, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, and then go off on my merry way. But that's me too. So
yeah,
yeah, makes your life so much happier.
absolutely. Yes, yeah, because it dips your vibration down. That's what I'm always saying about to people, that you got to keep your energy and vibration as high as possible. And there's a lot of things that will keep pulling it down, and
Mm,
definitely news and stimulating negative news will do that. And we kind of want to avoid that and try and stay, because we're not going to work spiritually or be in that energy if we're always getting pulled down. So, but then that's another conversation for another day.
yeah, we can go on that for ages as well. But thank you
Oh,
so much, Nikki. We made it through. No hiccups apart from that little freeze in between. Thank you so much.